all I want is more men in my house telling me how things work. This is my favorite thing of home ownership. I'm having a good time.
I've got a quick question for you, alright? I wanna hear your thoughts, I wanna know what's on your mind. I've got a quick question for you, alright? The answer's not important, I'm just glad that we could talk tonight. So what's your favourite? How did you get? When will I be remembered? Was it ever? Where did all go? Why do we know? Oh, forget it. Sorry, Louis, Daniel O'Brien. Two best friends and comedy writers. If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.
So, hello again and welcome to another episode of Quick Question, the show with long answers. I am one half of that podcast, senior writer for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, author of How to Fight Presidents, and I forgot that I had stopped doing this part, so I don't have to come up with things for me anymore. Daniel O'Brien, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Soren Bowie. Soren, say hello.
Hey everybody, old habits die hard.
Yep.
I'm a writer for American Dad, and I'm a dad myself, and
An American.
also, as of last week, I am now a T-ball coach. Thanks to Shopify for supporting Quick Question. Shopify is a platform designed for anyone to sell anywhere, giving entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/QQ, all lowercase. Now, I've coached baseball in the past. I don't know if you remember, I coached my son's team. Huge mistake. Shouldn't have done it. Kids, your kid, yours, Daniel, does not like it when you coach him.
No.
It's pretty rough. They expect to see you in a particular light, and when you are like clearly not. I think just generally in life, I present that I love him more than everyone else I'm encountering. And when I'm a coach, I'm like, no, you're one of the kids on the team. It's like I'm like critical of him in the same way that I would be critical of anyone else. Now, I wouldn't say overly, but he was still like, it was devastating to him. He did not like it. And he was like, couldn't hang when I would like give him feedback on like how to like make his game better. Didn't like it. So I'm not coaching his team anymore. Now I'm coaching my daughter's, who is an absolute maniac when it comes to competition.
Awesome. I think when my dad coached my basketball team, I was older, so that was helpful to have some kind of like understanding. Like T-ball is very young to learn anything, but I was in middle or elementary school when my dad was coaching my basketball team, and he was so behind the scenes nervous about showing favoritism to me, his son, that he would intentionally restrict my minutes. I think to not present the idea of favoritism or spoiling his kid or anything like that. And I, meanwhile, was already like well along on my path of self-discovery to know that like sports isn't the thing for me. So when I'm seeing my minutes cut down from one year to the next, I'm like, this is the only smart coach I've ever had. He doesn't care about equity and fairness. Yeah. He just knows to bench the guy who's not doing anything. He sends me in when he needs a steal or someone to be like a fucking savage on defense. But otherwise, he keeps me on the bench where I belong. And this is some good coaching.
Yeah. I guess I probably didn't let Ronan play. You're right. The pendulum probably swung too far the other direction, where like he had opportunities to play different positions, but I was always like, yeah, but he's already played infield all last game. Like I'm not gonna put that kid in right field. But yeah, so Gilly's gonna start playing baseball. I've met some of the other 4 and 5 year olds already, and I'm just like thinking, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna teach them? I think I have to teach them everything. Like I have to teach like here's where you're gonna run. Here's the next place you're gonna run. Then if you get all the way around these little square rubber things, you get home and that is a score. That's how you score in this game. Like I don't think they'll know any of that shit.
Yeah.
So Yeah. By the end, maybe they'll understand what baseball is, and also just like why it's America's pastime, why it's such a beautiful game.
Sure. Seems pretty boring and bad to me, but that's... Do you even actually think that? Do you think it's America's pastime? Do you think it's America's favorite game?
Oh, no, not anymore. No.
Yeah.
Football has taken that mantle, but it is still like... It's a very enjoyable game. It's a very enjoyable game for me as an adult. I think that it's... I don't remember this as a kid, but I can sense it in my own children. It's a nightmare for them. It's so much standing around, and then these moments of like where action is happening, and you have to do everything exactly right to even like make a play. And that's like you're not just like catching a ball. You've got to be able to field a ground, know where that ball's going to go, field the grounder, pick it up, throw it to the base, get somebody out, and like make the right decisions all along the way. And there are like 6 you have to make. Yeah. And then it's more just standing around. It's people yelling at you, and then you more standing around. It's gotta suck.
Yeah. Well, Soren, this isn't a sports podcast. You know that. This is a home ownership
workout
podcast. Nope. It's a home ownership podcast again. Unfortunately, for some of our listeners, this Bachelor recap podcast is pivoting to home ownership.
I'm going to do those every other week. And in the meantime, we'll talk about your plumbing issues. By the way, I've gotten a lot of people rarely contact me directly about this podcast that we do. But after we did the plumbing stuff, like several people reached out and they're like, I'm a plumber or I'm a homeowner, and that was just such a joy to listen to. It was so cathartic. Very much a relief to hear Daniel's problems, and I was like, oh, okay,
great. Well, you picked the right podcast.
Miraculously, you landed on this plumbing podcast.
This one is it's going to be mostly about heat, because that's been the big albatross of this house that I can't remember how much I talked about it before we bought the house.
You said that your furnace doesn't work and you guys don't have heat.
Yeah, we didn't have heat. And this house was built, let me check my records. I want to make sure this house was built first. Correct. It was the first house ever built.
Yeah.
And they've made very few improvements since then. And the furnace, our boiler went out very quickly into our time here. We had different folks come to try to repair it, and of course they eventually convinced us that this is irreparable and you need a new furnace, which is not great, but is kind of great, because a new furnace comes with new warranties and also like an understanding of how things work. Because this was such an old house and the furnace was sort of built piece at a time, and the house has changed ownership, the positives that we were seeing was like, well, this is new. We have great peace of mind that the furnace is new and is not going to explode. And it's a high efficiency. I keep saying furnace and boiler interchangeably because I'm stupid. But we're going to get this new thing in that's going to keep us all warm, and that's going to be great. It's going to feel good for us to have it. And we can contact the company that did the installation if anything else goes wrong. And brother, have they been back several times already, because things continue to go wrong.
Well, I have some questions for you right off the bat. This is not an HVAC system, right? It is not your heating system is not also your air conditioning.
No, completely separate.
Unit.
So the good thing about moving into a house in January, as we did, is we have months until we even find out that the air conditioning doesn't work.
Right.
So that's
pretty solid.
That's someone else's problem. That's future Daniel's problem. For all I know, he'll be dead. And so we won't even have to talk about it on the podcast, because the podcast will be, I don't know, an AI recreation of my voice talking to you about very similar problems, but without that certain unlikable element that I bring to it.
So, okay, I have one more question before you really get into the nuts and bolts of this. When you're dealing with all this, did you discover that you have asbestos piping coming from your boiler?
No.
Oh, that's great. That's great news.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's on a house that was built first.
Correct.
That's pretty common, because they use it because it was not flammable. Yeah. So like you'd have these vents for all of the monoxide that's being created from the fire that's heating your entire house. that runs to your roof, and that would frequently, that pipe that goes all through your entire house would be asbestos. And then you're just like, you're fucked.
Now, Soren, we're buddies. We're old friends. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you there's not asbestos in the house. We got asbestos in the house. We got asbestos in our drinking water, I'm sure. It's just not in the pipes for our boiler furnace thing.
Here's a little something about me. I used to do plays when I was younger. I was a theater kid. And the thing about being a theater kid is that when you're on stage, you are the star. And after the play, everybody thinks you did it all. As sexy as it is to be up there on stage, the real play is done all behind the scenes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the same way businesses work. What's happening up front with the actual interactions that you're having with the thing that you want so rarely is what the business actually is all about and who's keeping that business afloat. When you think of businesses that are selling through the roof, like Alo or Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about the great product and cool brands and brilliant marketing, but often what's overlooked is the business behind the business, making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does business better than Shopify. With Shop Pay, they boost conversions up to 50%. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/QQ, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/QQ to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/QQ.
But they fixed it, which was nice. And we have these old, like tanky radiators in most of our rooms producing the heat. They're really cool looking. They're very old. We love them. There are 2 rooms in the house that have baseboard radiators that are different from the sort of like curvy ones that you're thinking of when you think of old radiators. These are the different ones.
You have the ones that pop and click, and when you turn them on, they get hot and they're down by the floor and they go. Yeah, like they circulate. Yeah.
All the heat needs to rattle around against all the stuff that's in there, you know? So the baseboards in a guest bathroom and a guest bedroom, they were not getting warm. So we had to call the company back a few days later, and we're like, great job with the heat. Couple things. These 2 aren't working. Could you please come and address this? And they came and they fixed one of them. And then the other one, they said, this one is working too. It's just going to take a while. I'm going to go now. And then they left. And then that heat never came on. And it's hard to explain that I'm already at my wit's end at this point, but I am, because to rewind a little bit, the first time the heat broke, we called a guy, and the guy fixed the heat. And then the heat broke again several hours later. We waited a few days because this particular guy didn't work on the weekends. Must be nice. We called him back Monday, comes back to the house. He says, what's the problem? We said, you fix it. It doesn't work anymore. We gave you money. Isn't this fun? He worked on it a little bit longer, and then he said, I can't fix this. You need someone else. And we're like, what? Like your dad? What do you mean? He's like, no, I called my dad. He can't do it either.
I showed him.
You need like a whole different, better company. And so he left. So we had a whole different, better company come in. And that was the first guy who showed us a bunch of pictures of the inside of the machine and was like, I can maybe fix this one piece at a time, but you need a whole new system.
Oh my God.
I was like, fuck. Okay. How much is a new system going to cost? And Soren, I don't know if you know this or if our listeners know this, but he doesn't decide how much the new thing costs. He says, well, a sales rep needs to come here and look at it and count the radiators, and he will tell you how much it costs. I'm just a tech. I don't do that. So we're like,
I need another better guy.
We're like, okay, fine. So we send him away. And then the other guy comes a few hours later, and he says, what's the problem? And we explain to him the problem again. We show him where all the stuff is. And he goes through everything, and then he stands in our kitchen and talks to us for a while, and he says, all right, this is how much we think it will cost to replace this thing. Here's all of our warranties, all of our blah, 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 blah. We're like, okay, that's a lot of money. We were going to ask for a second opinion from somebody else, so we get another guy to come out to our house, go, what's the problem? go into the basement. We explain the problem. They go through our house. They count the radiators. They stand in our kitchen. They talk to us for a while. They go through their numbers and they say, here is our number. And it's lower than the first guy's number. So we're like, we like this number better. And we're Googling as all this is happening. So we know these guys are selling the exact same boiler. One of them is cheaper. So we're going to go with the cheaper one because the other one also had a reputation for being exorbitantly expensive.
Okay.
So the sales rep signs our paperwork. Then he leaves. A few days later, new technicians come because they're the ones who are doing the install. They come in. They say, what's going on? We explain what's going on. We show them everything is. And I feel I need to point out that I work from home. So this is all happening during like my work concentration days and hours. They spend 2 days fixing this thing. So by the time this other guy comes out, to then walk in, a brand new tech from the same company, say, what's the problem? And I say, just come into my kitchen. We had you guys come out to fix the boiler. What was wrong with the boiler? Great question. It didn't work. We had multiple guys. They couldn't fix it. So your guys came and replaced the whole thing, and the heat was working, and it was great. There are 2 rooms where it's not working. Please, can you fix it in one of these 2 rooms? And the guy's like, sure. He does his thing. He leaves. One of the rooms is still not working, even though he said, just give it time. That's why at this point, when I call the company back, I finally say, hey, it's me again. You know, I'm sure something lights up on the phone when my number calls that everyone's like, oh, fuck, it's this guy. It's this guy who we've been to his house 4 times in 1 week. Yeah. He's calling again. I was like, hey, I just want you to know, here's the entire story. Furnace broke. Guys came, fixed it. Things weren't working still, even though they said it was working. Second guy came out. He looked at it. He said it was fixed. He left. The paperwork said the job was done. The job is not done. The heat is still not working in this one room. And they're like, okay, we can see who's around today. And I said, no, I don't want anyone else to come into my house anymore. And they're like, I don't understand. And I said, I can live with the heat not working in that room. I just wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that it didn't work anymore at all, and it never worked. Yeah. And I'm okay with it, but like if next winter rolls around and we have other guests and it's cold still then in the future, I want to make sure that there's a note of it in your report on our house somewhere that it's your fault and you didn't fix it. Because later when I've calmed down, I'll call you again and I'll need heat. And I would just like it for your records. And they were like, I don't understand. Why don't you just have someone come back? It's like, because I need to get my fucking job done. I need to work and have a few hours to myself without having some other man come into the house and stand in my kitchen and ask me what the problem is and then shake his head. But I still want this on record that it doesn't work. And they're just like, okay, I'll make a note of that here. And I'm sure on their end, it's just someone like writing on a Post-it note.
And then throwing it away, yeah.
Daniel O'Brien, address, heat broken, really unhinged.
Yeah.
Does not want us to come back. Seems like a workable solution for all parties. And then later, of course, I spoke to my wife and she was like, I will, she's very sweet. You're like, you were really great. You dealt with all the heating people. Every time someone came in, you talked to them, you showed them around, you stood with them while they repaired things. I will do this. I will make sure it's on a day when you're not home. On Mondays, I have volunteer work. You will be at your volunteer work, and I will deal with the people. They will come in. That person came on Monday while I was at volunteer work, and they worked on the same guy who tried to fix it the last time, tried to fix it again.
Oh, that's good.
And then left with his report saying, all right, I fixed it this time, and it's definitely getting warm. And Soren, it's still not. It's just not.
Doesn't work at all.
Even have time to be mad about that because that got done on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I noticed that our 2 radiators in the basement were leaking from the bleeding valves. Do you know what the bleeding valves are on these old radiators?
No.
Sometimes when air builds up in these old radiators, you need to let that air out because water flows through the radiators to produce the heat, and the air can't be there. So you can take a key, or in some cases a flathead screwdriver, to open up the side of the radiator and bleed the water out. When the water starts flowing, then you stop, and that gets the air out, and then you can run your heat again. These bleed valves, because they were the second and third bleed valves ever created, they're past their time. So they're leaking drops of water into the basement. I noticed this on Tuesday. I think completely unrelated to the other heating work that was going on. And I could have just collected this water in little cups, but I also know that you can't have moisture in the basement. You can't have leaks in your house. And so I called the same company. Hello, me again. This isn't about the heat upstairs. That's, for the record, still not working. This is about a different thing. And I was just wondering if I could get a technician on the phone, if he can talk me through this. If this is something I can do, then talk to me and let me do it. Or if it's not, or if it's something that will go away in a couple of days because it's normal, that's fine too. But this is not how the system works. They say, okay, we can have a guy out there in a couple hours. And they came, and this is resolved now. They had to replace the bleeding valves because they were the oldest bleeding valves of all time. And they replaced another thing. And then they talked to me for a while about how bleeding valves work. And I'm like, this is great. All I want is more men in my house telling me how things work. This is my favorite thing of home ownership. I'm having a good time. And the other thing that came up in this conversation, because they were like, so you're saying this wasn't these leaks, because these are old machines. You're saying this wasn't happening before. I was like, no, this started Tuesday. And they were like, how did you know this started Tuesday? I was like, well, Tuesday is when I noticed the water. And they're wondering how I noticed the water. And our listeners might be noticing that too. Little water spots down in the basement in these very specific places. Yeah. And it's difficult to admit, why? It's because I was in the basement staring at the floor, wandering around looking for problems. Yeah. And I'm glad they didn't ask, you've been a homeowner for a month. Was this part of your monthly maintenance check that is recommended, going into the basement looking for leaks as part of your due diligence as a homeowner? I'm glad they didn't ask that, because then I would have said, no, the monthly maintenance check where I went into the basement looking for leaks was Saturday. This was days later when I was doing it again for no reason, because I don't want to be accused of stolen valor, I don't want to say I necessarily have OCD. I just have a strong belief that there are lots of things that I need to check somewhat regularly, because if I don't, something bad will happen.
Well, you were right, by the way.
I was right.
I hope that's great. That's
good terrible
confirmation.
News. It's really terrible news. That means that I just happened to be skulking about in the basement that I just checked a few days ago for the specific thing, and I was like, leaks. Good thing I caught them here Tuesday morning.
On my third try through. Yeah. I knew this was worth it. Oh my God. All right. Okay, let me ask you an honest question quickly. What are you having for dinner tonight? Ooh, did that question just fill you with anxiety? Did you think, oh man, we haven't planned it. I don't know. Generally, when I eat, the kids aren't going to eat the same thing as me, and now I got to think about what to make. And if I'm thinking about tonight, then I got to start thinking about the rest of the week, because if we're hitting the grocery store, we got to do it all in one fell swoop. I know that feeling. Well, guess what? What if you could take the pain away from thinking about all of those meals? Let's talk about what I eat, which is Factor. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so no excuses. That's why Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Just go look at what they have to offer. Some really great meals. What I like to do is it always comes in 2 separate little containers. You've got your little tray for your sides, like your veggies, and then you've got the main course. And what I do, I just pop one over on the other and just eat it all together, because they're designed to go together. So check out today's sponsor, Factors. Head over to factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for your busy lifestyle. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. So reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. So
I think everything works except the other heater. And I was talking to my wife today, and I was like, they're downstairs again, and they're fixing the bleeding valves. She was like, did you ask them about the upstairs unit? And I just said no. And I think it's going to be no for a while. I think this is truly next year's problem. And they might come back next year and be like, this is a new issue to us. We need to completely replace this thing, and it's your fault. Maybe I will either have achieved peace, and I will be okay with that, or maybe I will have grown a spine, and I will not be okay with that, and I will direct their attention to this very podcast and our long string of emails and phone calls and say, no, sir, you are paying for this. You are fixing this. This is your problem. I have documentation. Which of those seems likely to you, Soren? Because option 3 is I stay the way I am and I pay that money.
Yeah, you're going to live with this.
Yeah.
So I like that you gave me the context of the fact that you're writing from home, because I don't know if that translates to everybody else, but in the writing process, like getting in and out of it is like steering a giant ship. It's like you don't just turn it. You don't just turn. You're like, and now I'm writing. Like you don't know how it works. You're like, you have some little things that you can do for yourself to get you in the right zone, but you've got to do that every single time you hop back out of it. And so if when I'm writing, if my wife is like, can I talk to you for a second? I'm the biggest asshole in the world because I'm so mad that I got thrown from it. It's like waking up. It's like, now I got to go all the way back to sleep. Like this is not, you don't understand how big of a deal this is. And so like, I'm a dickhead. I'm a dickhead when I'm interrupted from writing for anything. And the fact that you were interrupted every single day to then go tell this story again and again, I can't, you should be celebrated as a hero for
Even
not killing someone.
Thank you. The casual interruptions when you're working on something and your wife or someone knocking at the door steals your attention, that can be frustrating. But even the planned interruptions are difficult. And like the planned interruptions with any kind of home maintenance work is a 3 to 4 hour window of time where they might show up. And that's basically our math listeners might not understand this, but if there is 30 minutes of work that is required of a technician that could happen within a 4 hour window, that's 4 hours of work that's not happening for me because I didn't get into the writing REM state. I didn't get into the flow state. So when I am like starting a day knowing that, oh, I have a meeting at noon, I have a podcast at 4, and I have another item on that to-do list at any other time, that day is gone. That day is just not a day that writing is going to happen because, like you said, you need like to ramp into it and to ramp out of it. And if you're just going to have these planned interruptions, it's just, there's just no going. And there's a certain amount of things that I can do for my job that aren't writing that I can get done. But if it gets to that, like, well, it's between 12 and 4, so that means they're going to show up anytime, then it's like, this is just a fucking dog shit wasted day.
Yeah. In fact, even when it's completely scheduled, today I had time before this podcast to work on my episode, which is due very soon. And I was like, you know what? I've got an hour, and this is like not even like pure writing, this is editing. And even then, like you're in a state where you're just like flowing. And I came to this podcast hot because I was like, what the fuck? Why do we schedule it for right now? Like mad. And had to really calm myself down and be like, it's not there. They have no idea. You have to just calm down.
I think I'd be in a much even more stressed place right now. But the day we're recording this, February 26th, there was possibly national, possibly global Slack outage today. Slack is very popular office communication software that we use we have different Slack channels at work where sometimes we bullshit. We have a different Slack channel for every story that the show does and different channels for updates. It is truly where all of the communication in my job takes place. And it was down today. And there was a couple staff-wide emails that was like, hey, it's down. So we created this Google space for people to talk if they want to, and also monitor your emails for important things. And the lack of Slack interruptions was so nice. It was so soothing. It was almost like I still had a read through today that of course I attended and gave notes on. But as far as the minute to minute work Slack things that come in to varying degrees of importance, it was really oh, thank God we can cross work off the list today because none of us can function without Slack. So I guess it's just a free day.
Now, if there is one silver lining as a writer to the experience that you've had, I think it's that telling that same story over and over again really helps you trim the fat of a narrative. And also the stuff that you get rid of and turn out to be valuable information that then you got to plug back into the story. You're retelling it over and over again, figuring out from your audience is this too long-winded? Am I not getting the point across? Oh, that's confusing. I see. I've told that a couple times, and they always get confused at that spot. Now I'm gonna massage that area a little bit. And it makes you so good.
When I'm telling it to you for the purposes of this podcast, one of the points of the story is to hit just how many different little guys came in here. When I tell this later for different reasons, I'm gonna combine a couple of those characters. We don't need two different techs and a sales guy. We don't need all those characters.
Yeah, I mean, but it really does drive the point home. I've dealt with contractors all the time, and you remember when I had a hole in the side of my house for a year and a half, and I was just on the phone all the time with people being like, "You don't understand. There's a hole in my house," and then being like, yeah, no, we get that. We apologize for that. No. There was never that even. There was never hey, this is our fault even.
Yeah.
There was just we understand. We understand the situation. And I was so mad and frustrated. And every time that I've ever had contractors, that has been the scenario. Unless you find one person where you're oh, I will go back to this person the rest of my life. And right now we have an electrician like that and we have a painter like that. And we're if these guys die, I'm fucked.
Yeah. We've run the gamut now where we started out with the guy that was this is a guy, this is a local guy, and we like him, we like the way he talks to us, and he's got a family run business, and we think that's good and fair. This is the guy who could not get the job done because he didn't have the tools and wasn't sophisticated enough. And this was the guy who doesn't work on weekends. And also, if you call their office, they're if you're calling after 4:00 Monday to Friday, we will answer your call at the next business day. Because that's how small this literal mom and pop operation is. So we went to the other end of the spectrum, the company that has just various HVAC guys that I guess are just roving around all the time for the person that you call, the dispatcher,
to
just say let me see who is available, and I'll just put out an APB to my HVAC guys and see who you get today. That is the more sophisticated, commercialized venture. There are flaws with both. Obviously, the hours of the first one were not great. But this second one, where I've never spoken to the same person twice, is also its own different hell. And when I talk to the dispatcher, they, to your point, they're not going to say, we're very sorry, there's a hole in your wall. They're just not only can I not offer you any advice on how to fix your thing, I don't know shit.
Right.
Everyone who works here is so specialized in their own things, and my thing is answering the phone and like monitoring the schedule. I am such a master of monitoring the schedule, but I've never used heat, so I can't even relate to your problem.
Yeah, that is deeply frustrating, and a lot of times you're right. Like you just want to talk to somebody on the phone and be like, "Hey, what's this thing?" I've found, and I'm sure this is like the same thing your dad ran into, and why he had the camera for the sewer line and everything, and why he did so many things by himself at home, is that you play this game 6 or 7 times with them, and then eventually you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, and if it's fucked up, I'll live with the consequences, because at least it's fucked up because I did it and not because like 4 different gentlemen have been in my house doing it wrong. And you'd be surprised at how many of those times you're like, oh, you know what? I could do this. I can do this. Because, and I mean, not to disparage anyone who's got like a real trade and like what they're good at and everything. A lot of it is just knowledge. It's just like knowing the stuff enough. And so if you're willing to commit to, okay, I'm going to take 5 hours and I'm going to learn how this machine works. A lot of times you can solve the problem on your own. And when you can't, I mean, even when you try and like you get to a point where you're like overwhelmed, where you just bit off more than you could chew, you invite somebody in and you're like, hey, I fucked up. I'm going to see a lot of you guys. But they're all like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get why you did this. So everybody understands the game.
And every time they replace something in this house, I'm getting closer to understanding how to fix things better. A, because I'm standing over shoulders and asking all of my stupid questions.
Oh man,
and,
they love that.
And B, before I call the guys and I am Googling around like bleeding valve on radiator, leaking water, how to fix, I'm Googling that first to see if I could do something. And every article and video that comes up where they're like, yes, this is 100% something that you could take care of on your own. And then they cut to it and just like, oh, that's not what mine looks like, brother. No one has mine anymore. But now they replaced my bleeding valve with one that looks like the ones in the pictures and the videos.
Oh,
so
that's
I'm
great.
getting closer.
Yeah,
I'll be able to do
nice.
this.
That's really nice. Yeah.
But also, it's very funny, Soren, that you mentioned you want to get someone on the phone, because this is a problem that, I mean, I'm very close to being like old guy shakes fist at cloud level of like disgruntled. But whatever happened at some point in the customer service world that has decentralized customer service lines for companies so that it's a person who's completely detached from the actual business, or replace customer service entirely with chatbots and AI. It's all very bad. It's all incredibly frustrating. Sometimes you want to get someone on the phone, or sometimes, as was my case with Home Depot, a company that, for all intents and purposes, I think is a good one as far as
no, they're trash.
No?
Yeah, they're trash.
Okay, great.
Home Depot is really bad. Yeah.
They had like a famously good owner who maybe died recently, but he was good for a while to his employees. No, he's bad.
Big Trump backer.
Oh, okay. I have it wrong then.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a company that sometimes you want to get someone on the phone. Sometimes, as it's my case, and I had a big problem with their delivery of our washer and dryer, I wanted to write an email because writing is my trade. And I had a lot of thoughts that I wanted it to get organized, and I wanted on the record, I wanted their corporate to see all of it. And I wanted to have like the timeline of everything that went wrong laid out very clearly and plainly for anyone to see, because it wasn't just that a thing was done wrong, and then attempts to rectify it were disastrous and unsatisfying. And there are still issues that are unresolved even today. It's been almost a month. The thing about Home Depot, some of our listeners might be ahead of this, you cannot email them with a problem. They have a phone, which I didn't want to do because I wanted to organize my thoughts in text. They have chat bots, which are dog shit. They have chat people, which is also difficult. And they have a forum on their website where you can submit customer complaints, but that limits your characters. and I had a lot to say.
Yeah.
And
Talk
I'm
to you
sure
later.
I sound like a Karen with all of my complaints with work, and I might be. I don't know, but in my mind, I'm the victim here. And you signed up for my podcast, so you have to agree with me. That's binding. And I was even talking to like a real person on chat, and I was like, "Hey, this is gonna sound crazy, but like I just want to email Home Depot customer care like broadly, just their overarching corporate customer service, because I want as many people to see this as possible, because my frustration is great, and it would be lessened if we got some extra attention and maybe some of the money back that we spent on this disastrous project." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't have an email address that you could send to." And I thought like, "No, I mean, but you do." No, we don't. We got rid of that in 2018. It was like, how can you do that? How can a business do that? But Home Depot did. They're full, like, people are listening right now who don't know. And like, I'm just gonna Google this, and I'm gonna skeet him on Bluesky. I'm gonna comment, or I'm gonna send it customer care or customer support at homedepot.com. And brothers and sisters, and otherwise, I'm telling you that email address will bounce back. It doesn't work anymore. You can't find it because they don't have it, because at some point down the line, Home Depot decided, well, we don't want big long customer complaints, and we don't want to hire someone to monitor them, so we're just not gonna have it. People can deal with a robot. They could deal with a person in a chat center somewhere in the world, or they could deal with a person on the phone in a call center somewhere in the world. And that's it. Those are their options. They will not be able to connect anyone. And Home Depot is so decentralized now that like the people who did the installation of our washer and dryer, they don't even work for Home Depot either. They are independent contractors.
Right.
A team that Home Depot has very little control over. They're just like, we dispatch one of our teams. We say who's available, and we dispatch someone to a location. And then they're in the fucking wind. They're gone. You can't find them anymore. And Home Depot's like, yeah, we don't... I mean, at this point, we might not technically have employees. We might, like every other business, just be like a vast network of gig economy people struggling to stay afloat.
It's so first of all, like a Lowe's and a Home Depot in general, it's so decentralized that even the people that work there don't know. They don't know shit for the most part. You got the slogan of Lowe's is "Let's build something together." That's fucking horseshit. They don't. You go to a Lowe's and here's what you want. You want to find the oldest guy there, because sometimes there are people there who know their shit, and it's surprising almost now because you're like shocked that they do. There's a guy at the paint section of our Home Depot, and I'm like, I know that guy knows everything, and so even if I don't have a paint question, I'm going to him.
Yeah.
And everybody else doesn't know a thing. And my son and I, for his project that he was recently working on, we needed that purple polystyrene, which is like a very specific type of styrofoam for insulation. And I went there and I was like, you have sheets of polystyrene? And they were like, no. And I was like, see, I feel like you do. I'm looking for it's a purple styrofoam. And they're like, spray? And I was like, no, listen to the words that are coming out of this one, out of my mouth. And like, and I went to like 3 different people there. All of them were like, I don't think we have that. We don't carry that. I start wandering through the store and I fucking find it. Of course I find it. And my son and we walk out the store and my son goes, some of those people that work there didn't know the store very well. And I was like, buddy, you got no idea. You don't know how many times I've done this dance, how many times I've had an irrigation leak or I've had something wrong. And like, I try to get I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely in those moments. And I want someone to commiserate or at least know what I'm talking about. And then you never will get that from a place like Home Depot or Lowe's.
All of this, we should be clear. These are symptoms of late stage capitalism. Not to get on a horse or a soapbox about this or anything like that, but undoubtedly the reasons that things like this are happening in a physical Home Depot is because maybe Home Depot decided they would save money if they weren't training their workers better or weren't paying for more skilled workers.
Yeah,
So
I think that's
you lose
mostly it.
some expertise. You also get a lot of employees who come to Home Depot because they're hiring, even if this person might not necessarily be a great for Home Depot. That's the job they take because their previous industry was bought by a hedge fund and liquidated completely. And so now they're starting from scratch at Home Depot. We don't blame the workers.
No.
We always blame the companies and the larger machinations of hedge fund and Wall Street ghouls who are very quickly destroying. I feel like it takes a little bit of the venom out of what I'm saying by saying they're destroying everything. I sound like an unserious person when I say that capitalist ghouls are destroying everything. It seems like I haven't done my research, but I have, and I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah, I do sound like an asshole, and I am. Let me be perfectly clear. I am. I've been through this so many times that I'm like frustrated and saddened by it. But you're right. When you're and this is frequently how the conversation goes when I'm on the phone with customer service for like the second hour or whatever. It's always the same. It's, hey, you're going to find that I'm pretty upset. This is not your fault, and I know that. But here's the issue that I'm having. And I'm sorry that I sound like this and I sound very contentious. It's just that here's exactly what's happened.
Yeah. And it's tough. My heart also breaks for the people in call centers who are in a thankless job, probably not of their choosing, but circumstances force them into this job. And I call them and I say, you're not listening to me. I'm very frustrated right now, and I'm standing in 2 inches of water in my basement because the delivery didn't work correctly. And they are flipping through a book of how to deal with difficult customers. And so they say, oh, Mr. O'Brien, I'm very sorry to hear that you are standing in 2 inches of water. I feel terrible about that. Let me put you on a brief hold. I'm like, no, I'm sure the guidebook said copy and paste the thing that he's upset about and repeat it back to him to prove that you are listening. But even this transaction, like the fact that you're doing that, is also one of the frustrating things now.
I had a roof leak. I think I talked about it on here. I discovered that from my move-in that every single vent that went through my roof, which is lots, every bathroom that you have, your kitchen, like all of that has vents to the roof. And in every single circumstance, it was not sealed at the roof. So water was just like coming in through that area. And I could wrap a towel around the pipe and catch the water that was running down it. But that's annoying to get up into your attic and then like change these towels out when it rains hard because they're sopping wet. So I was like, I found a roof guy and I called him and I was like, here's the problem I'm having. And he's like, when it rains in LA, I'm booked up for 7 months. Like that's just, everybody has these problems because no one discovers them until it rains.
Yeah.
And he's like, just tell me the problem. And so I start explaining it to him and he's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go get this stuff called Henry. It's this black sealant. You're going to get one of these putty knives and you're going to go up on the roof. And if you just seal these places with that and you feather it, and he means is like as you're putting the putty on, you use that putty knife to like spread it out evenly so that as it's going away from the main joint, it just feathers on the pipe. It gets thinner and thinner. And he's like explaining it to me. And he's like, you probably can solve this problem on your own in like half an hour. And I was like, can I just pay you? Like, you don't know how valuable this has been to me. Like that you just told me how to solve this problem and you were like, it wasn't a YouTube video or it was like impersonal or anything. It was like, you knew the problem. I explained it to you. You then went to me and you're like, dude, I got a solution for you. Here's how you do it. And I was like, this is the service. How do we get this every single time? I want to just let me pay you and maybe you'll do this again.
Yeah. The guys who came today, possibly because my phone number sets off alarms in the building because they've been here so many times. Before they left, they're like, has anyone told you how to bleed these? I said, no one's told me anything. He's like, okay. And he told me how to do it. And it was a simple process that I'm very happy to understand now. And I was like, how often should I have to do this? He was like, ideally never. But now you know. I was like, yeah. All right, man. Get out of my fucking house, please.
Oh man, when they impart the knowledge on you, it's great. And I was like you when I first became a homeowner, when they're like they're like installing a new clean out for me, and I'm like hanging over their shoulder being like, so if I need to do this again, how do I do it?
Yeah.
And they're so polite, but man, is that the worst part of their job? Is somebody just being like, I want to understand.
I don't know that it's the worst part of their job, because what I've found in any of these techs who have come over in my whole life is that they love explaining to you how things work.
Well, they love telling you how yours is fucked. How like whoever did it first fucked it up. Yeah.
I could say like, hey, this there's no heat coming out of here, and they're like, so what a furnace does, right? So what it does is it heats the water, and water goes through the pipes, and this is your gas valve, and this is your this thing. I'm like, oh okay. I had the same thing when in an old apartment when the dishwasher broke, and I had a guy come out to work on it, and he was like, it's not a complicated machine. Water comes in here, it spins around in this box, it comes up through these things, and it comes through here, and then it drains out of here. And I was like, what, did you not have a son or something? What the fuck happened? I don't care.
Yeah, tell us to your kid.
Yeah.
I wish that I would have been told all of those things. I think back on that, and I'm like, wow. Because I think you're just more in the way when you're a kid. And so like, my dad was not, you're already pissed off when you're fixing a thing. And then to have your kid there too, who's like asking a bunch of questions. I've really tried to get Ronan involved because he's older. Yeah. Not because he's a boy. Let me just be clear.
Fucking feminist of the year. Where's the trophy?
Get it out. I try to get him involved even when I know that the project is going to take longer, because I'm like, you have to know these things. Like, it's so valuable to have this information, and I didn't have it. And whenever I am faced with a problem, I have a small heart attack, because I'm starting from scratch in a thing I don't understand at all. And now I've got to research it, and now I've got to figure it out and diagnose it. And I'm going to diagnose wrong a lot because I'm not good at this yet. Yeah. And I don't know the terminology even.
I'm certain, I wish I would have had the wherewithal to ask questions and be behind my dad's shoulder while he was doing things, so I would have a better knowledge today. But B, I'm also certain that he would like that idea in theory and would hate it in practice too, because he would be trying to figure out what was wrong with a car, and this little 12-year-old asshole me would be like, is it maybe that tube over there? That tube looks funky to me, because I would want to solve things, but I don't know anything. But that wouldn't stop me because I was confident. And I'm sure at that point he would just be like, it might be that fucking tube. I don't know.
I hope it's not now, though, because you said it. I don't know why I'm embittered to you, but I don't like you right now. Yeah, they just be quiet and watch. Yeah. It's all fucked, man. It's so, homeownership is such a chore.
I think
at every turn.
My solution, which is not applicable to everyone, it's not even really applicable to me at this juncture, is that there is a non-chain local hardware store in my town that is staffed by, I think, the one and only guy forever, and he knows everything. Like a kind of guy where I've gone to before, where I will like hold up a bolt and he knows what the thread is by looking at it, so he knows what size whatever I need to match it. Those guys are a treasure. They're such a godsend. Yeah. The Jaspers and Howards of the world who run their own hardware shops, they are, of course, more expensive than Home Depots and Lowe's. That's why I can't go to them with all of my things right now, is because their expertise has value.
It costs.
And I just put all of my money into a frozen wet house, so I can't splurge on bleeding valves at the moment.
I'm gonna give you a recommendation here, Dave.
Ah, man, I thought that sentence was gonna end with money.
This is going to be only cathartic for you. It's not going to even help you with your home stuff. It's only somebody who you can commiserate by watching. Have you heard of a comedian named Derek Cahill?
No.
He's on. You got to find him probably on TikTok, but he does this thing called "Fuck This House," where he bought a house that is in terrible shape. He's got a family, and like he's got kids from like age 16 to 6. So like he's also like a parent too, and everything goes wrong with this house. Like he opens up floorboards and there's like ants in there. There's like a whole kingdom of ants in there, and he's got a pool there, and the pool's always fucking broken, and it's just every time he comes on, he's got that same energy that you have every time you're trying to fix something. He's like, "Hey, welcome back to another episode of Fuck This House. Here's what's going on right now." And you get to watch him deal with this thing, and he's not good at fixing things because he's learning too. And as he's fixing, he's like, "Is it better? I don't know. More of a lateral movement, really." It's a lot of different new problems, but the thing that I had before, that's pretty much fixed.
Because it's still winter, we haven't even gotten to the part of this journey where it's full of ants. I know it's coming.
Yeah, you got an insect thing.
I've been watching the movie. I'm getting ants in the porch.
Oh man, yeah. You need your first full 4 seasons in a house before you're like, okay, I think I know all the things.
And the ants are gonna wait until I get my dream porch where I could sit with my coffee in the morning and work in the sunshine peacefully. That's when the ants are gonna show up to make me paranoid about having coffee out there.
Not even those, dude. You got a front porch. You're gonna have cluster flies. You're gonna have those flies that just hover in one spot and they love the shade, and so they live there now. And you want to go out and use your porch, and it's like, no, the flies live there. They love that shadowy area. They like it for the same reason I do. It's shady.
Yeah. Well,
well, I guess that's the podcast. Yeah, but check him out, Derek Cahill. Fuck This House.
I will check out Derek Cahill. I'll add it to the list of things that I check, in addition to the floors of the basement and corners where ants might show up, and the lug nuts on my tire, because one time my tire fell off, but that doesn't mean I stopped checking today.
I was there for that.
Yep. It was my birthday.
Yeah. All right, thank you everybody for listening. This has been Quick Question with Soren and Daniel. If you liked our theme song, that's by Mirex. You can find their music anywhere you stream, or you can go to mirex.bandcamp.com for full albums. We are produced, engineered, and held together in every capacity by Gabe Harder. He also puts together a lot of really funny clips from these episodes, and we'll put them up on Instagram, I think maybe even TikTok. And those are actually enjoyable for me to watch. I remember, like, I have no memory of these after I do them, and then when I watch those, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty good podcast. I like this. I enjoy this. You can also find full versions of this in video format. If you want to go to YouTube, you can look for Quick Question with Soren and Daniel there. And if you want another version of this podcast, a version that no one else hears unless they pay the big bucks, you can find us on Patreon. You can get extra every other week. We do a more unbuttoned version of this podcast. We're a guest calling after dark, because that's what we keep saying at the beginning of it. You can also do that through Apple subscriptions as well. And
good catch.
That'll be it.
Yeah. All right, bye.
Bye.
I've got a quick question for you, alright? I wanna hear your thoughts, I wanna know what's on your mind. I've got a quick question for you, alright? The answer's not important, I'm just glad that we could talk tonight. So what's your favourite? How did you get? When will I be remembered? Was it ever? Where did all the why do we know? Oh, forget it. Soren Bowie, Daniel O'Brien, two best friends and comedy writers. If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.